and give you a sneak peek. It's gonna keep you jumping.
Hello, I'm Dr. Isaiah Jerome III, and I'm the proud host of the Impact Education Leadership Podcast. Today is a special segment on principals as instructional leaders and the moves that they make as it relates to instructional delivery. When it comes to instructional delivery, we have to focus on data-driven instructional coaching and focus the area in analyzing student achievement data and teacher observation transcripts by translating data into specific actionable feedbacks for teachers. That's how we get success in that endeavor. As a school administrator, you're likely live within the principal's paradox, the exhausting reality of being everywhere at once, navigating this relentless quote-unquote noise and chaos of daily operations while simultaneously feeling that your impact on actual student outcomes is frustratingly diluted. True instructional leadership is not a result of the volume of classrooms you visit. It is a result of diagnostic specificity. The high leverage move for any leader is moving beyond personal opinion when a teacher hears, quote unquote, I think the lesson lacked pace. They hear a subjective critique. When you justify what you said with data, you provide a mirror, not a window. To achieve this level of specificity, I, Dr. Isaiah Jerome III, is going to highlight some of the best practices from Bambrick and Centoya. Bambrick and Centoya uses 9 best practices that serves for look-fors to categorize instructional delivery evaluations. These are the 3 domains: foundational, instructional, and engagement. And in those domains, there are 9 strategies. The first strategy is identifying similarities and differences. The second one is summarizing and note-taking, while the third is reinforcing efforts and providing recognition. And the second domain, instructional, there are homework and practice, where reflection occurs. Number 5, non-linguistic representation. And 6, cooperative learning, like those POCs and professional development. And the third domain is engagement. Setting objectives and providing feedback, like feedback loops, and generating and testing hypotheses. And number 9, cues, questions, and advanced organizers. When these practices fail, the leader must pinpoint the specific type of student error. It is usually procedural, the steps, conceptual, the underlying idea, or computational, the execution. By using these 9 strategies, instruction is now highly leveraged, and it improves the learning of all stakeholders. When it comes to scoping and sequencing of instructional delivery, Bambrick and Centoya say that there are 5 key benefits or 5 core beliefs. Beliefs 1 is focus. Beliefs 2 is teach. Beliefs 3 is practice. Beliefs 4 is monitoring. And belief 5 is growing. When it comes to focus, target the right skills. When it comes to teaching, use high leverage practices to embody high quality in the instruction. When it comes to practice, be deliberate when practicing. Giving feedbacks is a high leverage practice. When it comes to monitoring, data-driven decisions are the best practice. And when it comes to growing, we grow every student every day. So how do we justify what we do as educators? Well, we do it by using a framework that is foundational. And the core foundations of this framework gives the principal's lens the quote unquote target point. The principal's lens should be laser focused when it comes to scope and sequence. It has to have a logical sequence that can be used or administered in every scenario. The first logical sequence is to identify the high leverage issue. This is the noise or the chaos in the problem, whether it's instructional or cultural. Number 2, the educational leader must justify it with data. When you justify it with data, you're not relying on your personal opinion. You are explicitly targeting and systematically citing documentation, transcripts, or data points to help support your diagnostic specificity. Number 3, propose a high leverage action step. This is how we stay clear of mixed messages and of micromanaging. Some examples of this is modeling or co-planning or even data inquiry. And the fourth and final logical sequence is using reflective questioning by asking teachers to prompt their own reflective responses through self-reflection. When these core principle lens frameworks are aligned to the best practices like Benwick and Sawyer, you get the best practices at the fastest rate. I think they called it get better faster. What we see are with focus, we see strong foundations that over time build skill and concept mastery that lead to deepening and applicational learning that brings stronger reviews and refined learning and strengthened knowledge to master and performance. These core beliefs are strengthened by instruction that is explicit with modeling. The gradual release model, the I do, we do, you do, that is so popular in our education system. And those strategies that include the think alouds so that we can review what's happening and target the key skill and ability that needs to be refined. So that when altering the lesson cycle has to happen, it is specified with those item analysis and those standards to help build confidence and help build critical thinking skills for test strategies. Next, we must look at practice and application as it relates to small groups with the different tiers noted in MTSS. MTSS is our go-to practice, is our go-to model when we look at guided practice. We do that leads to the independent practice you do, and the independent practice leads to the application activity or task that is aligned to the TEAC or aligned to the standard, depending on what state you're in. So that gives success to the test. These mixed practices show improvement with annual assessments and summative assessments. And they can be seen even in informal summative assessments at the end of a unit. Then, as instructional leaders, we must assess and monitor and make changes as related to the data. And those data changes are tracked through baseline data, through formative checks, and adjust through instruction. They're accessed through progress monitoring and analyzing the trends of the different subgroups. They are accessed through summative and measured growth as well. Now, the last step is accelerated growth, and that's through goal setting. Targeted small group instruction that is differentiated based on the data and the needs of the student that is listed in the MTSS intervention models. How do we close the gap? We close the gap by giving rigorous activities and tasks, and we celebrate growth. We celebrate growth, we reflect, and we celebrate on new goals to be obtained. When it comes to note-taking, the leadership writing style is king. But there are 3 writing styles of the instructional leader. The first writing style is descriptive. The second style is analytical, and the third style is reflective. When it comes to descriptive writing and the style of writing, the classroom, for example, the transcript shows, quote unquote, the teacher spends 80% of the time lecturing and less time spent on guided practice or independent practice. Quote, explaining the impact that this has on the learner, the lecture is heavy approached. There's not enough time for students to interact and reflect, which is directly contributing to the lack of engagement, noted in the student survey. So when it comes to learning, standard recommendations and interventions is reflective. Now, the instructional leader must detail how they will monitor the progress of the intervention recommended to the teacher. Impact of Educational Leadership Podcast. Facebook,